So I'm Joe Jordan from Wausau, Wisconsin. I'm here with my 60 300F 4-speed and my 62 300H convertible. Been a 300 Club member since the early 70s, active off and on. Business kind of gets in the way, and I finally retired about a year and a half ago, and I'm really going to do as much as I can with these cars the next few years. So it's important for me to get them out and get people to see them, because these cars really are pretty special.
Yeah. What did you first see in a letter car and get involved with?
So for me, coming out of high school in '68, my first high performance car was a 62 300 Sport Tudor hardtop that had the H motor, the 380 horse 413 with two 4-barrels, 150 speedo, and the 15-inch wheel covers. And I really didn't know anything about them at that time, but as I started to do a little looking around and research, this is long before the internet, right? It's kind of word of mouth. I discovered that those cars really are pretty special, and they really didn't build very many of them. And I really got looking around and discovered that there was a 300F in my hometown, a convertible that was sold new in Wausau. And I was working at the Shell gas station at the time. The car came for sale for $300. Couldn't come up with the money, fast enough. My dad's boss actually bought that car and then commissioned me to start doing some restoration work on it. So then that led to me meeting more people that had 300s, because of the need for parts and things like that. So becoming a member of the club was a natural thing to do. Like I say, it was probably in the mid-70s when I joined, and been a member, active member off and on. Like I say, business gets in the way otherwise. But so over the years, I've continued to look for unusual 300s, and this particular car, this 62, I found in Ohio. There was a guy on eBay selling some 300 parts. And he had the center medallion that goes between the seats in the back, and I could tell by the thickness of the medallion housing that it had to have come out of an H or a G. So I texted the guy, or actually emailed him at that time, and he tells me it's a 300, and that he's just taking parts off of this car. It's laying in a farmer's woods, and he's selling the parts on eBay, and whatever he gets, he splits with the farmer. So I started asking him some more questions about this car, and he tells me, well, it's kind of tough shape. It's laying on its top. It was actually on its roof, upside down in this woods. So he sends me pictures, and this car is laying on the header and on the trunk lid, upside down, and the doors are open, and he sends me these pictures that he took late in the afternoon, so they're really grainy. The car looks like it's got a white interior, and it's a dark red color, and they never made any 300Hs in those colors. So I asked him for some more detail, and he sent me some better pictures, and it really looked like it was a very unusual car. So I got the serial number and talked to one of the guys in the 300 Club, Gil Cunningham, and he told me that, yeah, that car came special order paint, special order interior, and so I had to go see what I could do with that car. So I get out to Pennsylvania, and I'm not kidding you, this car is in the woods. The farmer's in his late 80s, and his kids had that car, and they took the engine and transmission out of it by cutting the mounts and then turning the car upside down to drop the engine out. That's how it ended up on its roof, and that's where it was laying for quite a few years. So we got it tipped over, and he drug it out of the woods with his old Ford 9N tractor, up onto my car trailer, and brought it home in tough shape because of the unusual rust, because of it catching water upside down. But the underside of the car, the floorboards, the rockers, the wheel wells, all that sort of stuff were in pretty good shape. So I bought a couple of Tudor hardtop parts cars from Arizona, and proceeded to cut those cars up in order to fix this car. And it really turned out pretty nice, so I've had 62s for a long time. My wife Peggy actually drove a Tudor hardtop when our kids were really young. I was, besides working a regular job, I was hustling cars and parts on the side. So we had this 300 Sport that she was driving, and she really grew to like the car too. So I thought this would be the perfect car to build for her. So the color combinations led us to adding ghost flames, because the color kind of it just kind of falls into the paint scheme. And I decided to update it with disc brakes. So I put large rotors on it. In order to do that, I had to put 17-inch wheels on it, and had those special made. You know, those are actually from Boyd Coddington's shop. You know, he was one of the first guys that was really making custom wheels. And so we've personalized it a little bit from stock, but if we wanted to go back to stock, we could pretty easily. So what you see here, you know, the color and the interior is as it came from the factory. You know, that's all original. And we're just out now starting to enjoy these cars because I've given up my regular job. So, and then the 300F is another kind of long story. That's one of the 9 cars that Chrysler built with a Pont-à-Mousson 4-speed. And they actually built those cars early in 1960 to go land speed racing at Daytona. So there's 6 that they built, and they had a 7th that was actually a mule, a test car. And so they went to Daytona, and one of the guys actually set the record. The six cars actually placed 1 through 6 in the speed trials that week. And Chrysler never had any intention of offering those to the general public, even though they advertised and publicized the fact that they were building this 400 horsepower engine and this 4-speed transmission. The truth of the matter is they only bought 15 transmissions from Pont-à-Mousson, a small company in France. And so they really didn't even have the ability to build very many of them. So as things typically go, there's always somebody that has a way to put a little leverage on them to get something built for him. Well, this guy with this black car was a road contractor in Nevada at the time, and he was good friends with Bill Harrah. If you recall, Bill Harrah had the casinos and the big car collection. Well, he had a Chrysler Plymouth dealership in 1960, and this guy, this road contractor, was buying Dodge dump trucks and the like. So between Harrah and this contractor, they got Chrysler to commit to build him that car. So it was delivered in May of 1960, and he actually, because he was in Nevada, he actually got them to add factory air to it. So it's pretty unusual to have a high-performance car and then add factory air to it, right? You know, I mean, that's really pretty peculiar. And it's got a radio delete, you know, I mean, so the guy actually there was an antenna on the roof. Guy had like a radio telephone type of setup in there. And he drove the snot out of that car. The car, believe it or not, has 120,000 miles on it. And Wayne Grafin, the guy that did the research and the cosmetic restoration on it, did a fantastic job of just, you know, it's a Western car, so it's absolutely rust-free. Put a really nice paint job on it, detailed the engine compartment. But Wayne liked to drive the car too. And after I got it from Wayne, I could really understand why he really, I mean, it drives unlike any other 300 that you get into, a really, really special car. So I'm really happy to be able to bring it out and to start showing the car around, you know, because they only built 9 in total, you know, 7 for the race and 2 for individuals. There's only 4 survivors. And so it's really unusual to see these cars, and so part of what I want to do now is get these cars out and get them exposed to the general public. Guys walk up to them, and it's like, I never see nothing like that, and they never built any of those. You know, it makes for a really great dialogue. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So are you planning on, in the past, have you gone to very many 300 meets, or you just mainly start to
so I'm just starting to go to the meets again. We went to a few in the 70s, and it really has been a long time since, you know, so we were to the 2016 meet because it was in Wisconsin, but now I'm in a position that I've got the time, and I intend to continue to go to the meets, you know, as long as God's willing.
Yeah. That's great. Do you have any kind of family connections that was part of Chrysler or a dealer, or did your dad really like Chrysler?
Nah, you know, that's the interesting thing. My dad was never really into cars, you know, and it was there was a local Chrysler Plymouth dealership that was way out in the sticks, you know, outside of Wausau in a small town, and I had some friends that worked there, and they sold a lot of high-performance cars to the farmers' kids that were out there. So it didn't take very long for me to get pretty excited about the Roadrunners and GTXs and that sort of stuff. So my first new car was a '69 GTX, and I've been hooked on Chrysler products ever since, you know. So the first car I had, like I say, was a '62 Sport. So over the years, you know, I've been in and out of the 300s and in the B-body cars and in the E-bodies for a little while. But I'm back now really focusing on the 300s because they really are great cars, fun to drive, and they just attract a lot of attention wherever you go. It's just so easy to start up a conversation with anybody because it's just fun to talk about the cars.
Do you normally drive your cars to the meet, or do you trailer them? Or?
Well, I trailered the cars down because I brought two to this meet, and but I love driving them, you know. So we put probably 60 miles on that black car the day before yesterday, and we probably put 50 miles on this car. So I have them to drive them, so I'm not afraid to drive them. Although driving in Detroit was a little hair raising.
All righty. I think that's it.
All right,
Good.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
My name is Bob Brown. This is my partner, George Collar, and we're from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. And we brought this time 1960 Chrysler 300F convertible, which was part of a group of cars that we ran into about 10 years ago. And it didn't take 10 years to restore the car, but it took 10 years to get to the point where we were ready to restore the car. And so that's what you have here.
Can you tell us when the first time you saw a letter car and you actually recognized that there was something special about it?
At the 1961 auto show in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with my grandparents on my 10th birthday. And that was the first I ever heard about them.
I didn't know what one was until somebody told me. And that was just about the same time that we went to our first Chrysler 300 meet, because we had seen in a magazine that there was a club for them. So we went to one of the shows. You remember which one it was? I can't recall now which one it was, but we went to the show and met a lot of great people, some of which are still here. And so we try to make as many of them as we can. And they were very, very good to answer dumb questions from people that didn't know what they were looking at. And when we went away from that show, I said, gee, you know, we ought to find one of those cars. We should try to buy one of those someday. And so we've been trying for 25 years to find a car.
Do you usually drive your car to the meet, or do you trailer it, or how do you get it?
This is a kind of a maiden voyage for this particular car. It was restored, finished restored about a year ago, and because of COVID, it hasn't gone out. It actually went to one car show, a small local car show. But this is the first time it's been any place where people could see it.
Do you do any of the restoration yourself, or do you hire it done, or have friends to do it, or how's that work out for you?
We generally take them apart, and
Okay.
and we have people that work on the engines. We have people that work on the body and the paint and the tranny people and so forth. And so I guess you could say that we try to coordinate it and put them back together after people that know what they're doing restore the individual pieces.
Do you have any connections with Chrysler Corporation as far as friends or family, or were you always a Chrysler person, or do you just kind of fall in love with these cars but that wasn't your history, or what did you think about that?
Well, my grandparents drove Chryslers in the 1960s and the 1950s, and I fell in love with the tail fins at that early age.
Sure. As far as I know, you said in your pre-interview sheet that there were some interesting circumstances when you bought the car.
We bought
talk about
this
that a
car.
little bit?
Sure, we bought this car quite by accident, and we had several others by the point that this car came along about 10 years ago, and we had always hoped to buy a an F convertible. We also have an F hardtop, and we had hoped to buy an F convertible, but we never really found one that was in the price range that we could pay or was available that somebody hadn't already snapped up. And friends of ours who live also in Wisconsin called one Friday or Thursday or Friday afternoon and said they just saw an ad in, I think it was in Old Cars Weekly, and it said Chrysler cars for sale. And they were going someplace that weekend, and they didn't have time to go where this particular sale was at and see the cars. So he knew that we wanted some Chrysler cars, so he gave us the number. And we called, and the man was very nice, and he said, yes, my father passed away, and the cars are in storage. They were in Davenport, Iowa. And as it turned out, there were, what, 6, 8 of them?
Well, there were 8 of them, but there were 3 that we were interested in.
Yeah, we were interested in the Chrysler 300, the one that's behind you, and it's cellmate in the place where they restored the 1961 Chrysler 300 convertible. So there were 2 convertibles, the 2 desirable ones, and there was also a 55 Chrysler C 55, and I can't remember. I think there was a Plymouth, wasn't it?
There was a Plymouth Fury in 1958.
Yeah. And so anyway, there was a group of about 6 or 8 cars. I think there was a Lincoln called Metropolitan. Does that sound right? Cosmopolitan. And there was about 8 cars in this old cinder block garage, and we ended up buying several of them, including the 2 that we wanted, which were this one and the 61 version. And that made it pretty special. And then we bought a parts car. I think there was a 60 New Yorker in that group as well, and we bought that for parts for this one.
A 4-door sedan.
Right. And so it was quite an unusual find to find those just sitting. And of course, they were all on flat tires. They had been in the building for 50 years.
Did you restore the rest of them too, or did you?
We
sell
restored
some of them,
this one is the last one of that group that got restored. Yes.
And you kept all of them, and you got all of them?
Yeah, we've got them stuck away here.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. Is there anything else as far as the 300 story or your relationship with the club or anything like that?
No, I think it's worth mentioning that the club people are exceptionally nice people, and we've been involved with them for many years, and they're friendly. They try to help you with parts, and as everybody knows who restores these cars, there are no parts. You can't open a catalog for 1957 and buy the engine. It's just none of these parts are available now, and so if you don't have this kind of a group, it makes it much tougher to try to put these cars back together. And I think it's also why the cars in general have appreciated in value, because now the people who were Ford people and GM people and didn't really pay much attention to Chrysler realize just how difficult it is to acquire these cars, because most of them have been destroyed, especially the convertibles. When the top went on the convertibles, they sat out in the fields and so forth, and then they just rotted away. And so there's only a handful of most of these things now.
You're fortunate that yours was stored inside of the building before you got
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yes.
That was the fortunate part. Now the unfortunate part, this car is a beautiful example. Is if you look at the front seat of this car, that's where the raccoon lived.
Yeah. Okay.
And he liked the car so well that he ate almost all of it. He ate all the seats. He ate the dash pad. He ate everything that was digestible, apparently. And we had about a 2-inch layer of you know what all over the bottom of the car. It was a disastrous mess.
He pretty much just made it his home.
Yes, he did. But the guy, in his defense, the original collector who saved this car, the widow told us that the 61 was her daily driver, and this one, something had happened to the engine, so they just parked it. And he parked it and kept it till he died, and then that's the reason it still survives today, because it sat in that building for 50 years.
That's great.
So that's about the story as far as this goes.
I believe we're
My name is Jeff Bailey. I'm from a little town north of Tulsa, Oklahoma called Sperry. And I've owned this car for 18 months. I bought it right before COVID hit. And it's been a lifelong dream to own a letter car, especially an L. This is a 65 300L. I found it in a NASCAR museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's set for many, many, many years. And I was visiting a friend in Charlotte, and we got together and went to the museum and checked it out. Saw it was for sale and made him an offer and was able to purchase it. My 300 story starts when I was 10 years old. I moved to Oklahoma from California with my family. My dad worked at Tinker Air Base, and our neighbor was a major in the Air Force, and he had a 65 300L, but he never drove it. And I became friends with his son, and we used to play together, and we would often sneak into the garage and check out his dad's car, but we could never touch it. I was always told you can't touch my dad's car. So it became a forbidden fruit for me. I became interested in them. I started reading up on them, and I'd always dreamed about having an L because I liked his so much. So after I retired, I began actively searching for one, and we found this one in North Carolina, and it was everything that I wanted. It had a good color, the interior was beautiful. I was told it only had 20,000 miles on it when I bought it, but I can't verify that if I had to testify in court, but as far as I know, it's got 20,000 miles on it. And it's been a dream for me. Bucket list fulfilled. I drive it to meets. I take it out at least once a week to go get a hamburger at the soda shop. Just drive it around and let people wave at me and give me a thumbs up. That gives me a thrill. But we do drive it. We don't baby it. We have a lot of fun with it. I bought it to drive. I didn't buy it to just be a garage queen.
Do you have a family connection to Chrysler? Oh, you already do that? Okay.
Well, I've been a lifelong Mopar guy. My first Mopar was a 68 Roadrunner. And my wife currently has a Hellcat. She's working on her third Hellcat, so we're Mopar through and through.
Talk about
with the group.
with the group time.
With the group.
Yeah.
I invite you, huh?
Yeah, we had a really good time. We saw the, and then they did the stalls yesterday morning. We love stalls. We were on that Princess River.
Oh, downtown.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bumping or anything on it.
Really?
It was just tied on there
Yeah.
with some metal. Yeah, the steering
He's got a passenger on the board down there. Look at that.
job of documenting those cars.
Really did,
That
yeah.
really helps a lot.
Well, your car here is so cool. You know, I was noticing you got the larger alternator pulley too. That must be part of the car.
Yeah, right.
You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's huge.
Yeah. Well, keep the belt from flying off. High speed stuff.
Yeah, these are the short ones.
With that set there. Heavy?
How bad do you want it? That's so cool.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I've been in the club for 15, 16 years
My 57 is real tense. Well, I did have a front end. It's only New York. It's not a seat, suspension. It's a rubber suspension. But I handled it.
Good morning.
Zeke, where did you go?
We've got about 18 more, or 18
You have to
signed
tell
up.
us
We've
that.
done 23 of them this morning.
Stolen or what?
Mark was here this morning earlier. I told him I was going to get in. I figured out where he went.
I like to look at that part.
Yeah.
The cross ramps.
Oh.
So he will have big boldy cars. Plus, he wanted to put himself for the other his wife died, so I have to get rid of one of the other ones. That's why we got two cars in our garage, big enough extra space. I just have to
this has pencils.
And some of the interior here.